you guys have an Amazon strategy? Who has an Amazon strategy? And like an e-commerce strategy in general? Because it's really important to take what we learn here and expand it beyond. Who has a founder-made market strategy? Not yet. But this is where you really want to put your stake in the ground. So, sister, take it away.
I'd love to introduce my incredible business partner, Meghan Asha, who just recently launched our newest product, which is the Founder Made Market. Meghan's the CEO of Founder Made, so it's an absolute honor. We have Ryan, who's coming up and joining us from New Engen. And our incredible leader from Big Commerce, please enter the stage. All right, let's all take a seat. So I'm so excited that I get to do this twice with you. I mean, what a big day for me. I feel like a celebrity, but I would love to actually have everyone introduce themselves. What's most important, I think, and what Founder Made really built, what we built the brand on is truly the story. What is the journey? What makes you the expert? What makes you the person that should be having this conversation? So I'd love to go down the line and have everyone just tell a little bit about your background, and then we'll go into more about the platform. But if you can talk about yourself first, that would always be great.
Sure. Ryan Anthony. I work for a company called New Engen. And what makes me an expert, I never say that I'm an expert. I usually bring the team together of experts who know what they're talking about. I just try to listen really well. And so what we do is we work with startups, we work with SMBs or very large companies to execute against digital marketing programs. We have our own software to do so and to enable those teams to do it themselves, or we can deliver outcomes for them. So there's a lot to unpack there, but ultimately, we try to help you get stood up. These early stage companies get stood up in digital marketing channels.
Hello, my name's Stuart. I'm with Big Commerce. I do have a weird accent. It is Australian. Don't hold that against me. For us, so I work for Big Commerce as an architect. Part of Big Commerce, we, again, position to small business, to mid-market, and to enterprise. Part of our goal and strategy is to really help emerging and growing businesses be successful online. I'll do a quick show of hands. Who's online right now? Look at that, most of the room. So feel free, my business card's just here. So our goal really across the spectrum is to support emerging businesses, help them. We have thousands, we have nearly 60 to 68,000 merchants on our platform, equally from all sectors and all verticals themselves. Myself, I work closely across all of those verticals and supporting and providing strategic assistance in how do you sell online, how do you position strategically online, equally what sort of strategies can you influence the market. I think the last panel talked about there's a huge structure of businesses you have to compete with, so how do you stand out amongst that crowd? So we do a lot of that in that space as well.
Meghan, CEO of Founder Made and Founder Made Market. The journey for Founder Made Market, which is a wholesale marketplace to connect the brands and the retailers. So Founder Made's actually started as an investor conference about 4 years ago. I was juggling 2 jobs. My first job, or my first company was in digital market. It was a digital media company. Sold that, and I was very close to TechCrunch, if anyone knows that platform. So when we started this business, I said, let's do TechCrunch, disrupt, but for consumer businesses. And the buyer and the seller must be the investors and the brands. Well, we would take surveys with our brands every summit, and we'd say, so did you like exhibiting at our show? And they say, no, it was nice, and we love the investors, don't get us wrong, but we really just want to drive sales. And so, I looked at this, I said, oh, wait, we're in the trade show business? Well, how can we be the trade show of the future? How can we deliver value not only twice a year at these bigger shows, but how can we deliver value 365 days a year by connecting the brands and the retailers in a more efficient way, making sure that we're marketing and doing the discovery that the retailers really want to find the next big thing. And so that was the journey with Founder Made Market.
By the way, thank you so much. And a little bit about this panel, which is what makes it so special, is finding the partners early on in your business or at different inflection points can be really difficult. It can be really daunting, and if done wrong, it can put you out of business. And for me, it's an area I'm incredibly passionate about, because not only have we built incredible relationships over the years with the brands and have heard so many times from our brand, who should we be working with on PR? Who should we be working with on marketing or on legal? And they turn to us because they trust us. They know we're talking to thousands of brands, and we're going through the vetting process and finding the best-in-class partners who not only are hitting the space from a different angle and are dedicated to growth, but are actually working with other leaders in this space and have proven track records. So I'd love to even hear from each of you different brands that you've had incredible moments with, and what different stages you really kind of jumped into the conversation with them, and how you really were able to drive that kind of impact that makes you a power player.
Okay, that's a big question. So
I know, very loaded.
So I think one thing that I would just add, or a wrinkle that I would throw into this, is that there's a right time. There is a right time for a particular vendor. They may not always be the right vendor for you. So you said best in class. Sometimes you don't need best in class. It's just a Band-Aid or someone to do the work for you today, so you can focus on something else. And so one thing that we frequently see when we are approached by earlier stage companies is, or we hear a story that's very similar to, hey, we have a consultant who's doing our digital or customer acquisition through digital channels, and we think we've outgrown them. It's a really common thing, but that doesn't mean they were the wrong vendor for that period of time. Typically, we have, in these early startups, we have CEOs doing the digital marketing, running Facebook ads, running search ads. Frankly, it's a big waste of their time very quickly, and it can be very time consuming. And so they pull in a consultant to do the work. That's a really good investment, but very quickly they're going to kind of grow out of that, and they can't build campaigns or manage them as closely as they need to. So that's very frequently when we come into the picture. They need creative resources. They need execution in search or in shopping or Amazon, Facebook, wherever it may be. And one person just can't do this. They actually need a team now. And so I'll use a story from our very early days. This is now 3 years ago. We worked with a company called Thrive Cosmetics. So Thrive Cosmetics was very close to throwing in the towel, essentially. They were spending a few $1,000s a week in social, and they actually didn't believe that it could work for them. And when we came in, they were skeptical. It was sort of one last chance. And in about 3 months, they were spending 10x what they were spending when they first started with us. And by the time that they left us, they ended up taking all of this work in-house. But about a year and a half later, they were spending kind of mid-7 figures a month. So they went from $20-ish thousand a month in digital acquisition to several $1 million a month in digital acquisition, and this was all at their targets. And so they couldn't have done that with the creative resources that we put behind it. They just did not have. They could not have done this. They didn't have the execution expertise in the digital channels. And so this is an extreme example and a turnaround, but it's one that's emblematic, and we have a number of different stories where we've 10x'd or 20x'd their spend because they just couldn't devote the resources they needed to make those digital channels work.
Great. Yes, I think in terms of stories and businesses that stand out for us in BigCommerce, there's a lot, and it's a lot to unpack. But I think to share with everyone here, just in terms of people who are entrepreneurs and founders and looking to scale the business, the things that I can share, organisations I've spent a lot of time with, that in market people just have a perception that there's strengths to a brand, and a brand that I work closely with is Skull Candy. I'm sure you're all familiar with the brand. So their challenge challenge in their market is that they compete with the behemoth that is Apple and the behemoth that is all of the other headphone manufacturers in the space. So we spent a lot of time with them. They migrated to our platform, and it wasn't. And part of really BigCommerce's journey is not really just to. Our goal is really not just to sell software. Our goal is to. It's a partnership, and our goal is to see their success. So for Skull, it was really around, okay, you're coming to a new platform, you're redesigning your site, but what does that truly mean? How do you engage your audience differently? And we did workshops with them to understand how do they evolve the brand, how do they connect to their community, and it really stemmed out for those people who've seen the brand lately in the last year or so. It's really gone through a massive transformation, and part of that was they realized that their athletes were not just people who were social influencers and who were just that sort of marketing drive to inbound. They were actually people who cared about their brand and their product, and so they leveraged them to actually say, no, don't just do an Instagram post with you wearing our product. Actually talk about what it means to you. Why do you choose that over something else when you snow down, when you ski down a mountain? Why do you choose that when you ride on a trail? And so as these influencers started to talk about why they use the product, it actually generated interest back into the product and started to get people thinking differently about their brand. And I know, again, we'll probably talk a lot about brand and marketing in the next few days, but for Skull, it was they needed to move, they needed to consider it, but equally they needed to think about how do we acquire those. They changed their product strategy in inquiring, not just making sure the homepage was really around and lavishing the core brand, but equally about presenting and showing those key strategists, those key athletes, and why they use the brand. And that generated huge traffic for them. They also have this whole brand strategy around what they call out of the box. And so this was really people using it in the streets, in the wild, and they connected those. They actually had athletes reach out to them, and they had separate coffee sessions with those. So there's meet the athlete type model. As a result of that, they had nearly a 25% increase in conversion just by doing that campaign, which is material for a brand like that. Equally, they were able to access new markets. They went into Korea, they went into South Korea, and so they're markets that they've never touched before because they didn't understand the social aspect of that and how they could generate the culture in that area. So again, whilst we're a technology company and we position software, we're also about understanding how you can grow, how you can be a strategic partner in that growth, no different to the marketing automation businesses there as well.
What's wonderful, we launched our marketplace in May. It was a soft launch. And what we've seen is, we have a ton of different kinds of retailers attending the show. We have the big box retailers like Whole Foods and Costco and you name it. And then we have the smaller boutiques. And, what the larger retailers are using it for is what we're seeing with the data is that they're using it for discovery. They're using it, to understand the trends, understand, and when we're kind of taking that data and saying, okay, this is what the bigger retailers want, and how do we make sure that we're optimizing that so that we can help them do their job better. And then in terms of the smaller independent retailers, what's great is a lot of the retailers that we've seen doing transactions on the platform are ones that haven't even attended our shows. They've just been they've had some good growth marketing initiatives, and they've or in Texas or it's Middle America, and they're looking, and the best part is that we're able to connect the brands. The brands are able to do very straightforward drop ship, and it's a minimal commission fee, and we're really just driving that sales. So for us, it's the discovery mechanism right now, and then understanding the data on the retailers and the brand's end.
By the way, to that point though, hearing about the story with Skull Candy, there's a lot of brands that, and this is all about shared learning, and it's about looking up and looking to the future and saying, how do I, if I appreciate and admire Bobbi Brown for what she's built and what she's sold, and I want to get there, but recognizing where you are in a moment. And to your point, actually, Ryan, you said it best, it's finding the partner that's right for you at that right moment, right? And so the partner that's right for Bobbi Brown, just because that partner works for Bobbi Brown. And by the way, even at FounderMade, we've fallen victim. We're like, this person with this incredible background who works with all the top brands, and we bring them on as a consultant, but they're not right for us in that moment. So how do you kind of distill that and pull back all the layers of all those brands that we might look up to that are bright and shiny to be able to say and make the decision around, this is the right partner that I should be working with because I am here? What questions should be asked to yourself to be able to have that right conversation?
I
know it's a tough one.
It is a
good one.
Hard one. It's really difficult to generalize. I think a couple of things jump to mind. where are you in terms of funding? Is a really big one when we're talking to companies of this stage. What sort of resources do you have to deploy into? So I'm just going to narrow my response to paid media, just because that is where all of my conversations happen. Are you ready to do that? Another thing is, do you have the infrastructure? So it's helpful to have big commerce here. You don't necessarily have to have the biggest, the brightest, the shiniest thing, right? Again, you may have some solutions that are not always going to work for you, or you may outgrow, but you need to have something in place. So do you have a place where your consumers can find you? Can you transact on a website? Or are they going to be able to find you in a store? Do you have creative resources? So this is something that we frequently run into. Are you able to do that yourself? We can help you do that, but if you don't choose us, then you have to have some other replacement. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense to work together. We will not succeed together. And so there are some very kind of distinct resourcing questions that we would go through. There's also an attitude that's really, really important. This is not a straight line process. You don't just go from a few orders to thousands of orders overnight, and it's not every day you make progress. It's often 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and there are frustrations. Things break. You fail to deliver product, or you have bad supply chain. There are a million different problems that can happen, and so you have to have an attitude of looking at the trend. Are you getting better over time? It might not be a day over day, but maybe a week over week, or a month over month, or where were we last year? And if you continue to make progress, even if it's very small incremental progress, that's what you should be looking for. Not just, are we hitting our customer acquisition goals today? Are we hitting our revenue goals today? Oh, we failed, right? If we didn't. It's not about that. It's, are we moving toward that? And how do we get the friction out of the way to continue to move in that direction? So I think attitude is typically what we look for more than anything else. Of course, you have to be able to pay the bills, but if you have the right attitude, you can do a lot more than those with a very static attitude.
Yeah, there is a lot to unpack, and it is a tough question. I think if I put my big commerce hat on, I'd say we support merchants at all stages of growth. So I think I have an easy answer, and I'll stop there. No. So I think, let me probably tweak that a little bit and say, what are the differences? Why do each of those, be it a small business, be it a mid-market and enterprise? And I think it's really in the level of sophistication that you apply as a business operator. I'm a founder myself. I have an online business myself, so I understand these things day to day. And it really comes down to, I think, as a small business operator, the types of demands and effort that you apply, things that you need to consider, as Ryan called out, the ups and downs that happen are very different when you're at a business that's, say, south of $1 million to when you're at 500 million. They're very different types of problems. So at the million, it feels like all of those problems are for you only, and that makes sense. And as you grow and scale, you have staff. But on the platform side, and how do we distinguish is, I see operators at the small business level think about the types of problems you're trying to solve and the solutions that you're trying to solve with, the solutions you want to pick to solve them. I see lots of merchants select an array of different styles of software, 15, 20 different applications to solve what really fundamentally is one problem. I just need to convert customers. So think about how you can run your business simply and easily and find the mechanics that get you there, BigCommerce being one of them. But equally, try to look at solutions around that, be it consultants, be it other support mechanisms, be it better shipping operations. And as you get more sophisticated, bolt those tools on. Many times I've walked into organizations who are at that 15 million or the 10 million and pushing up. How do I get to 15? How do I get to 20? And my often conversation is, let's have a look at what you're leveraging today. Can we simplify the product? Can we simplify the process? Can we look at how the people get managed? 9 times out of 10, it's either operational inefficiency. A lot of it can be just in pure product strategy, even before we start looking at the technology. So again, my advice would be, as you go through those tiers, just think about what you specifically need in order to run that business. I'm here today with an operational online company, and I run it by myself, and I still have SKUs going out the door. In fact, I did 5 sales while I was just in the last 10 minutes. So it can be done. It just requires a good set of sophistication at that time.
I love it. For us, we always say a founder-made. What's a founder-made company? And for our shows, especially with the bigger retailers, we always say we have three different benchmarks. Number one, usually a company that's $2 million in revenue and above. Segment defining. So if you think of Sir Kensington's ketchup or any of these very very specific segment defining things in the market, we never thought Heinz ketchup would ever be disrupted by Sir Kensington's, right, or RX Bar, and mission-driven and transparent, because we really believe that we are the curator and the brand leader to help curate these brands of the future. And for the platform, it's been really, really interesting because we've seen a combination of these new brands, international brands. A lot of CBD would love to be on the platform at some point when we are able to drive commerce for CBD companies. We will let you know on that one. And then companies like Navitas have come to us who have massive distribution, but then they also want to get into these smaller boutiques, make sure that because at the end of the day, retail right now, there's this specialty retail that is doing so well, it's thriving, and the larger retail is now rethinking a lot of its strategy and making it more experiential. So there's a huge shift happening both online and offline for the future of retail, and so that shift, I think, is also we're seeing on the platform in terms of the themes and even just product discovery and distribution.
Actually, to that point, because this panel is how to leverage e-commerce to distinguish your brand and increase sales, right? We're all here to sell, but we've done a great job on building an incredible brand. There's an incredible mission, but without the sales, it's hard to perpetuate the mission. So what is your role? Like, what is your sweet sauce in this particular conversation that's allowing these brands to perpetuate the mission? Like, what is the going back to the book, the one thing. What's the one thing that you absolutely nail that these brands need to know about that's going to help them distinguish their brand and increase their sales if they are able to have the opportunity to really drive it home with you?
It's experimentation. So you mentioned creating a brand. There's I think an old-fashioned notion that brand is you create it and then it's done. It's there. It's sort of this platonic ideal of what your product is about and its values. E-commerce, paid media, all of these interactions, these digital interactions, they have as a virtue real-time feedback. And what you can use that real-time feedback for is gently, maybe sometimes very dramatically changing what your brand represents. And it can be a little bit scary. And so this is, I mentioned an attitude, but you have an opportunity through e-commerce, through digital channels, through this very direct relationship with the consumer, you have an opportunity to change your brand, maybe in slight ways, maybe in big ways, but change it into what the consumer wants. You may not have it perfectly right the first time. Sometimes it happens. So like an Allbirds, for example, they spent a lot of money to build that brand before they spent any dollars going live, selling advertising or buying advertising, and it worked, right? They had a very novel thing. We work with Rothy's. Rothy's has an awesome product, and it just caught fire, right? We don't always have that luxury. And so that really fast feedback mechanism is really powerful. And so what should you do? You should experiment. You should test different ways to communicate your value proposition. Maybe value propositions that you're not 100% comfortable with. We call them wild cards. You should always be giving a little bit of budget, a little bit of room to new ideas, new concepts, new products that push the boundaries of what your brand is, or maybe even challenge what the brand is. And it's a really low risk venue to do that. You can spend a small amount of money, get really quick feedback, and if it's a failure, you turn it off and there's no harm done. But if it works and you should be shifting what your brand should be or what it should say or who it should talk to, then you may have just opened up the business or opened it up to a much wider audience or found the product that the consumer actually wants. Maybe you weren't quite there yet. So experimentation is something that we that we advocate for relentlessly, your brand is not a static concept. It shouldn't ever stop changing because the world isn't going to stop changing.
I think I'm going to put it in similar ingredients to Ryan in that the narrative in my head always when I get together with merchants is learn and then apply, or learn, adapt, and then apply. And so it's really about thinking, again, of your message, how you're trying to consider the model, to learn, apply components out of that, or learn methods and practices and apply those, and then look to see, again, run in that circle. How am I taking this data? How am I seeing how my customers interact? But probably some key takeaways that I constantly see. We've all in the software game, and those people who may have heard this term, it's called minimum viable product. So MVP is a classics thing. In my world and the conversation, I talk about minimum viable store. What's the minimal level of store operation you need in order to get stable and get yourself operational? Because customers, you assume a lot about a customer, and I've seen founders and merchants spend years crafting a story, and it's great, but sometimes getting to market and getting that feedback directly from customers as you build is actually more valuable and stronger in terms of building your business and trying to think about what they might buy from you. So minimum viable store and around that. Second would be, always I've found founders constantly think about, I want my homepage to look beautiful. And it's important, right? It's important to look great and to have that foundation of your brand as the first experience your customers touch. But I would say is if it's not functional, you'll lose your customers very quickly. So the core goal there is make your homepage functional. And the poor cousin, 9 times out of 10 I always find, is your product detail page and your cart and checkout. I'm getting into the weeds, but I figured let's talk detail. So consistently, I see a lot of people spend a lot of time on home pages, and it's important because it helps convert your customers into that category listing page and think about, hey, these are the products that I want to buy from you as a merchant. But you often forget about the PDP is actually where they spend a lot of time, and you want them to because you want them to consider the products that you have. You have the opportunity to cross-sell, upsell within that page. So try and spend time making sure that you're looking at how you can convert, how you can influence, how you can drive. Great brands like Kelty, like Skullcandy, even Spearmint Baby, who is run by a very small group of people who sells beautiful onesies for babies. If you haven't seen it, most amazing product ever. Started by one person in a cafe. She built the store by herself 2.5 years ago. Now she's doing millions. It's a fantastic story if you get a chance to read. But she did the same thing, focused on homepage, but then really focused on making her PDA, her product detail page, intrinsically aligned to her customers, and she constantly refined it. And the last is cart and checkout. I know people probably think that sounds really boring, Stuart. Like, isn't cart just showing me a collection of items and checkout just get the money? True, but these days it's a constant way of change. So if you look at sophisticated products, so I'd invite you to go and have a look at burrow.com, who sell, if you've seen Casper or AmeriSleep, these are product brands that send beds to your home in a box. These guys send you a couch in a box. Whoever would have thought? But have a look at their experience. They're looking to ways to convert customers on their checkout page. So people would think, don't touch the checkout page because we've already sold the customer. Let's run them through, get their credit card and go. But it's an opportunity not to cross-sell and upsell, but it's actually an opportunity to influence a customer about your brand and try to find ways to get them to return. So again, it's almost like the last panacea of the experience. So I would stress there's a lot of value. I've worked with a lot of merchants who've tested that over the last 6 to 8 months. It's been every one of them have seen a positive outcome as a result of it. So anyway, I thought some into the weeds might be helpful today.
Super helpful. We all want you to look at our homepages and tell us how to drive sales. And for us, our one thing, and this is, again, we started as an investor conference, and then we turned it into a B2B retail conference, right? And we launched basically a wholesale marketplace. Our one thing is how do we make entrepreneurs and consumers, how do we connect consumers to retailers in the most efficient way possible? And that's what we do at our shows. We do that with retailer one-on-one meetings. We do that with the platform. And so that's our one thing. That's the reason we discover the best consumer brands and we help them build, and we define build as driving commerce.
To that point, actually, and to going the opposite way from out of the weeds to more the macros and trends that we're seeing in the market, it's interesting what's happening because we saw a big bubble in tech actually, and there's these massive valuations in the market. Now we're seeing that same bubble in consumer, and I hear it from so many investors. They're investing in these brands because they've been able to build their D2C strategy in such a massive and incredible way, and therefore you can see the multiples in this space in the craziest and most profound way than ever before. And whatever existed. And of course, being able to drive your e-commerce strategy is such a monumental piece of that, and how that feeds into the macro investor story and trajectory of their full D2C strategy. But I'd be curious to know from your perspective, like, how much of that kind of architecture are you actually even touching with these brands and telling that larger story as a strategic partner? Because there's part just getting the job done, but part, to your point, like growing with the brand and really thinking about where the brand wants to go in that long-term journey. So I'd be curious to know how involved in that conversation you are and how that actually influences the work that you do.
Yeah, so a lot of times with startups, we are actively pushing back against aggressive venture capitalists. So what we often hear is we need sales or we need new customers. And to that I would say at the right price. We can spend a lot of money. Anyone can go find reach, find awareness, go get new customers. But the trick, the challenge, is finding them at the proper level, in the right channel, so that they have the right experience and they come back to you. If you're paying exorbitant sums for a customer, and you can't ever make it make sense, then you shouldn't probably be spending that money. And so again, going back to those initial conversations, those initial questions, sometimes we can comply with, we just need customers. That's usually a sign of desperation. Typically it's hey, we have a specific cost per purchase goal, or we have a specific return on ad spend goal. And so we really need to set those objectives right from the start and get very clear about that. But we can help tell that story. I think the biggest thing that we do is provide customer insights or creative insights. So the testing, that experimentation that I was mentioning, it doesn't really mean anything unless you're pulling out insights from who's buying, right? What's resonating? What iterative process have we deployed? What tests are we going to be running next? What have we run and completed already, and what did we learn? Those things will allow investors to be more tolerant. And we've done it ourselves. We're a startup also, right? We're 3 years old, and we have messed things up. We have failed. But our investors want to know that we've learned something through that process, not just that we're doing something else and we're pivoting blindly, right? But there's an understanding of past failures or how you got here to begin with, and you know what you're doing, right? There's a logic to the progression. So that's where we kind of play into this story of growth. It's not just sheer numbers. It's about how you got to those numbers and what takes you to the next level.
I think on our side it would be we're typically super VC friendly in that because our cost is fairly insignificant comparison to especially other platforms in market with some other, obviously our direct competitors, but certainly in terms of cost to revenue, we're significantly small. A SaaS platform. So for those of you, so BigCommerce is a SaaS platform, so you don't need to worry about hosting and PCI compliance if those terms mean or don't mean something to you, but protecting credit cards, all of those sorts of mechanics and looking after software and servers and all of those aspects, that's what BigCommerce provides. So all you need to do is spin up a store and get building. And as I mentioned before, minimum viable store, you can set up a payment gateway in a few minutes, you can get your store set up in a few minutes, and you can start selling within a few minutes. And so we've had organizations like I mentioned, Spearmint Love. She started her store in a cafe. It took her 2 hours and she started selling the next day. And that was just purely based on base manufacturing that she had and continued to scale, as I said, to millions today. So I think for us, it's really about providing you a tool that lets you focus on doing what you do well, which is building great products and focusing on doing the business, and let the technology and the other things that drive it really just support in the background and run for you. You don't have to worry about that as a problem. As I said earlier, you've got enough problems to think about. Our goal is to try to take away that pain off your shoulder and let you focus on doing what you do well. My only little extra to add to that, because I'm a get into the weeds guy, don't hate me, that's macro. But one thing I'll highlight is that, again, when I spend time with merchants, when we talk about macro and VCs, one of the things they ask is definitely about, I need more customers. And one thing I always say is that conversion can be the death of a company. And the reason is that if you get super myopic on conversion, which is, I need a really big funnel in order for my business to be successful, that's the wrong story. You need an effective funnel that you can convert effectively that gets to checkout. So 10 customers, if they become 10 customers who visit your store and eventually buy, that is better than 100,000 customers, only one person purchases. So my little trick today is try to think about how you convert, because VCs love that stuff. If they know that you're laser focused in how you convert customers and you see that and you have a journey and a story and a strategy around it, they will start throwing money at you for sure.
I'm going to say amen to that, because and this is also the reason why we're building what we're building. Some of the best entrepreneurs we know that we've worked with bootstrapped their company. Founder of RX Bar, he was focused straight on distribution. We worked with him 3 or 4 years ago, and he literally was like, nope, any VC that talks to me, I'm just focused on distribution, sales, scaling, sales. So that's the reason why we built this business. This is why we are really driving towards making retail and distribution as efficient as possible through our platform, and again, we love the investor groups. We love what they're so additive to us and our community, and we love the acquirers. But for us, we want to make sure that our brands are getting sales and staying in business and growing to be the next RX bars or the next acquisition candidates for all the big CPG companies, or become the next Estee Lauder. I mean, guys, dream big.
By the way, thank you so much for today's panel. I'd love to actually open it up to Q&A. This is my favorite part because we get to hear the questions that you actually have. So Sarah Chase, thank you so much. Who has a question for these incredible leaders who have shared so much today?
All right. So this is a question for Stuart. Thanks to Michelle and Meghan, I feel like a lot of the brands in this room are about to blow up, and it's a lot harder to migrate systems once you're doing 10 million in revenue versus like 300,000. So could you explain, without getting too much into the weeds for us, a lot of us are on Shopify. They have a huge brand presence. So when you set things up, you just, go to Shopify. When is it the right move for a Shopify customer to maybe migrate to BigCommerce or choose them over Shopify?
That's anytime. I don't know how else to answer that. I mean, ultimately, I think for us, from a BigCommerce perspective, we support small business. We have a strong strategy in small business. Out of the 68,000 merchants we have, nearly 30,000 of those are small business. And it's been a culture of our company from day one. From 2009, our founders of our business saw the opportunity and continue to harness that strength as they grew. And so it's always part of our DNA and always will be. And so for us, though, in terms of transitioning, the best thing about BigCommerce is we have tools that do that. It can migrate. There's an actual tool that migrates you from Shopify to BigCommerce. Super easy. And we have a team of great people to help. So the difference, and I don't want to go into competitive, because Shopify does a great business. They have a great story. They have a great organization. So I'm not going to, but for what BigCommerce does in our DNA is that we're all about, again, I mentioned earlier about partnerships. So the difference is with us, we have a team of people that support. We have e-commerce consultants, and our goal is to work with you to try and handhold, try and take you through some of the pain. Instead of just say, here's the software, good luck, and call us if you get a problem. It's no, here's a piece of software. But also we saw the metrics, we saw some opportunity here. It looks like you're slipping in sales and the conversion. Have you thought about this way? Or have you thought about these other things to achieve? So they're the sorts of different options that BigCommerce provides is an armada of people that can help and support you, not just through the migration process, but my view is post-migration, because when you go through that, your expectation is, I should be doubling my sales. And so just moving platforms doesn't do that, but moving platforms because you get access to an ecosystem of great people, partners, and our team is really what does it. And most people who've come from different types of e-commerce platforms, when they start looking at, okay, what solution do you select, it's pick something that I think today's modern age, definitely SaaS, but equally from a BigCommerce perspective is try to think of what are the mechanics of migration, how do I do that, and the type of people that I'm going to get with. Because for us, it's your success is our success. So we're invested together. So for my view is pick the company that's going to work with you. Does that answer? I'm not sure. Cool. Any other questions?
How's it going? Thanks, guys. Josh. So obviously, a lot of paid for getting customers, but what about for getting retailers? Are you guys seeing much about with brands running paid media to bring in new retailers? And if so, examples?
So basically, you're talking about a B2B strategy.
Correct.
And we've been approached. Look, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, Instagram, you know they're there. The challenge is, how do you target them? So what you don't want to do is blanket the world with, come sell our product. It doesn't make sense. So actually, you need to do a kind of a combination of conferences, for example, and sort of the pounding the pavement, getting those email addresses, because over time what you can do is build that kind of first party data, and then you can start to use some of the tools, for example, lookalike audiences, where you can narrow down the group, because you don't have in Facebook a category for retailers for beauty products, right? Or who run or buy beauty products for wholesale channels. It's just, look for it, it doesn't exist. So you need to find and get creative, find other ways to do it. It's really, really difficult. And the problem is that the volume is really, really low. You probably have a few thousand people that you actually want to talk to. I would say that paid is probably not the most valuable place to be spending your dollars. It's not, you shouldn't desert it entirely. I think there's some interesting target or retargeting options that you might be able to use, but it's not going to be your main prospecting channel. I think you're going to waste a lot of money there.
Thanks.
Hi, it's a question for Meghan. I know you have been a partner with RangeMe. So we were talking about the connection between the retailer and the brand. What is the strategy behind that partnership?
If people aren't familiar with RangeMe, amazing platform, definitely a discovery tool to help retailers and brands to get discovered. For us, it's really about doing purchase orders off the site. So if you're a founder-made brand and you're on the founder-made market, you upload your products. We actually do we have a curated customer service intake where we basically even put you on the site, make sure you guys look great, make sure that you're fitting our retailer criteria, and from there, retailers are literally looking almost like you're shopping, an Amazon or a shopping e-commerce, but it's only very highly vetted retailers that are on the site that are able to do the purchase orders. So once the purchase orders goes through, you're able to approve it on the back end, and then you're doing direct drop ship. So it's really there's no, on RangeMe, it's amazing. It's definitely an incredible platform. For us, it's really about the commerce part of it, where it's the buyer and the seller efficiently doing purchase orders.
Oh, I think we have one more question.
All right. Hello. Thank you, guys. Quick question, one other question. Stuart, what was the couch company that you mentioned?
Burrow. Borough.
Burrow?
Borough, yes.
Okay,
It's
awesome.
my crazy Australian accent. Sorry for that.
Sorry.
I did say earlier. Apologies up front.
I just wanted to confirm. And then I feel like in an e-commerce world, we should mention Amazon a little bit. What % of your clients, or I guess what % of sales are on Amazon for them versus their website? What are you guys doing to drive those Amazon customers to the native platform?
There's a lot to unpack there again. I think, in short, because we can certainly go into detail one-on-one if you like, but certainly we have within our platform, we have the capacity to service direct listing into Amazon. So there's a great federation between us and the Amazon platform. So, and that includes things like retargeting. It includes overrides, sub-catalog. So the whole idea is to allow, create, and attract within that marketplace. Getting into the weeds, and again, looking at the audience here, I think the value I could give around Amazon is don't think of Amazon as, and I think even our CEO has a similar view, is don't think of Amazon as the bad demon in the room or the bad player, because if you do, you'll probably sell yourself short. I've seen a lot of retailers and retailers and merchants leverage Amazon as a vehicle to drive brand awareness and product awareness. So it's not necessarily an area to sell. It may be, you may get some arbitrary revenue from it, but it's a vehicle to get people to bring them to your brand. So strategies like BigCommerce, where you can buy direct through Amazon and get access to and actually sell through BigCommerce. So you're using BigCommerce's checkout experience. You're not necessarily leveraging Amazon. Similar with Instagram and others. So vehicles that bring people to your site, to your traffic, and then you can start enlisting them as your ongoing return customers. That's the vehicle you should look for. But again, there's many different methods around leveraging Amazon that I can happy to chat to you one-on-one about strategies that I've certainly shared with many Amazon customers.
I think that wraps it up.
I'm getting the signal from the back. Oh, Sarah, a star student, first row, no surprise. Thank you so much, by the way. I think we'll let you connect because I have gotten signaled that we have a cocktail party that awaits every single one of you. Thank you so much for being such incredible students, sitting in and joining us today. We're so excited to have you. Tomorrow's going to be an incredible day. Get rest and enjoy, and thank you so much, Ryan.
Yeah.